Hello, hello! I have my round eye brushes here today to show and compare. And I'm going to start with these sort of long blending eye brushes, if I don't drop them everywhere first. So these obviously have a very distinct shape. They're sort of this like long blender shape, and they don't really come to a point, rather they're more rounded. Some of them are a bit more tapered, and I use them all the same though. So starting with the smallest one, this is the Urban Decay E212. This is made of synthetic hair. I'm destashing this one because it's just too thin. I don't need it. If I was going to use something for precision smudging, this is called the Detail Smudger. I use a pencil brush instead. So this one goes. The BP 36 is made of Kolinsky and one of my favorites, so it's no secret that I love this brush a lot. And I will be keeping one of these. One of these is going to a new home, but I have several backups. So even though I'm technically destashing one, it's because I have a ton of backups left, which I grabbed before they kind of all got discontinued. The BP series, that is. And the BP series is this sort of black and white. Some of them are still kept, like the BP 016, which is a cheek brush, fortunately. And I originally got the BP 036 to try to dupe the Shu Uemura 5R, which is a brilliant round brush. It doesn't fluff up very much, it's quite precise, and it's also quite firm. But it's a really great eye brush for just blending in the corners, especially if you're using a cream or pencil shadow, and that's what I use the BP 436 similarly, except I use the BP 36 more as a regular application brush with a slight bit of blending. This doesn't quite apply and blend as well because it's not as fluffy, but they both are great brushes. This is the Hakuhodo. Let me check what code this is. This is the Hakuhodo G5529. It's made of squirrel, and it's pretty much a squirrel version of the Shu Uemura 5R. The difference being the Shu Uemura 5R and Pure Kolinsky is now discontinued, and it's also made of Kolinsky. The Hakuhodo squirrel one will be much softer, as you can imagine, and it's really pleasant. It's quite firm and springy for a eyeshadow brush made of squirrel. So if you're afraid that it won't blend your eyeshadow out correctly, it definitely will, but it just takes a little bit longer. This is in one of my videos, the top 10 Hakuhodo brushes video, the first one I ever made before their price increase, and I highly recommend getting this one. This is a Koyudo gray squirrel eye brush. That's literally what it's called. It's just called the gray squirrel eye brush. And this is what's from a limited series by Koyudo. And this was based off of one of their permanent models in a BP series, also now discontinued. This one is a great little blender if I'm doing precision blending, and it's just really nice to have. So the closest brush that I have to it is the Sonia G blender from the Kayaki series. The normal one in the permanent line is dyed to goat hair. I don't have that one to compare to, but I would say that if you want a small, soft, fluffy blender like this Koyudo one, I would definitely look into the Sonia G brush. This is called the Booster. I'm not sure where the booster name for the brush comes from, but it's really nice to have. And as you can see, they have similar spring back speeds, which is unusual for squirrel. The Sonia G, of course, is just a little bit bigger, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue. The only problem is this undyed version comes only in the Kayaki set. That's the only thing that I kind of don't like. So, but all of the brushes in that set I feel like are really well-rounded, good brushes to have. So that's with those. And moving on, get these out of the way, to pencil brushes. I have two small pencil brushes, so I'll show you why I call these guys small later. I'm going to be destashing one of them. This is the Koyudo Mizume Sakura Saikoho eye brush in size small. It was replaced by the Yoshiki series. It looks pretty much exactly the same. I'm not sure what the differences are between the two. Well, actually, I think I know. Like, the face brush is 1 or 2 millimeters smaller, but I'm not sure if that can be chalked up to measuring error or if they actually used a different mold for it. But anyways, with this small brush, I don't need it. Basically, if I wanted a really fine point, the Sonia G would cover it, because this one is quite stiff, so it holds the point really, really well. It's stiff, but the hairs are soft, so don't take it stiff to mean like it hurts your eyes. It doesn't poke your eyes, but what I'm trying to say is I don't need 2 of these, so I'm going to keep one of them, and I really like the Sonia G one. This is the pencil one. And then I call this a small pencil brush because the more larger, more, I guess, normal medium-sized eye brushes or eye pencil brushes are this size. So hence, this is a small pencil. These are more regular pencils. So the Koyudo CO11 is discontinued. It's this more rounded pencil brush, but I really like using it the same way I would sort of use the booster brush or the 5R. So as you can see, they both have that tip that splays to about the same size. This one just is ever so slightly fluffier, so it makes a more diffused effect, which is why I separate it from this category of brushes. So it applies more like a pencil brush. So if you lay down eyeshadow with it, there'll be one sort of concentrated area, and then the sides of that concentrated area will be more diffused and fluffy. So it kind of blends itself out as it applies. Not so much for these guys. These guys you have to apply and then do a little bit of blending. This kind of blend, or all of these kind of blend and apply as you go along. So CO11 is I'm keeping because I like it a lot and nostalgia. And then we have the Hakuhodo. This is blue squirrel and horse mix. Let me check the code on this. This is the G5548. So I've already talked about how Hakuhodo horse is pretty extraordinary and soft. So some of their pure horse eye pencil brushes, like their small little white ones, I wouldn't know it was not horse unless I checked and it told me so. So this is quite soft. Overall, the blend of blue squirrel and goat feels like, blue squirrel and horse ends up giving you this springback that feels like goat, but a bit more firm. This one, I don't have trouble using it around my eye area. I'm also not super sensitive, so it doesn't poke or sort of irritate my eyes. And I do really, really like this brush. So I'm keeping these guys. I also do like this one. This is the medium size of the Koyudo Mizumezakura Chikuhodo brush. I'm going to be keeping this one because I'll be destashing the Tom Ford 14, which works pretty equivalent to it. So the Tom Ford 14, this is the original goat hair one, is pretty much the same size and point. Even though the Koyudo one's a little bit thicker, application-wise, I don't notice that much of a difference, and they're both equally soft. I don't need 2, so I'm going to be destashing the one that, this might be surprising to some people because you can no longer get this, but this is one of those brushes where like it was nice to have for a collection. And I got this brush before right after the announcement was made that the brushes were being switched to synthetic, and I kind of got it out of FOMO, but really this Koyudo brush does the job beautifully. And then this is a synthetic clone made by a Chinese brand called Energy. This one I got for the express purpose of seeing if they could sort of like match machining, and kind of scary, they do. So watch out for brushes that you get. Like, it's pretty much down to the font. But while the Tom Ford one has Japan etched into the handle somewhere right here, it's sort of raised. This one has nothing. I've been using this one as a lip brush and concealer brush, and I will be destashing it as well. So I'm going to show you sort of like the small, medium, large sizes of eye pencil brushes. So small, medium, large. And then I have a size up that is slightly larger, but we're getting into crease brush territory now. So this is the last of the true pencil brushes, and these are noticeably larger than the previous batch. So remember how I was saying how with this batch, especially with this CO11, that when you apply, it sort of blends it for you as you go along, especially true of these three. These three are all by Chikuhodo. This is the white one is the Takumi T8. The brown one here is the, okay, what are you? The KZ08. And then this is the Z10. If you want to know the differences between these three, I do have a video on the Homare series where I do comparison swatches and talk about the differences between the three in the end. But I can say that all three of these are unique enough to keep in my collection, though my favorite is the KZ brush, followed by the Z brush, and lastly the T brush. I did briefly consider destashing the T brush, but I don't really have anything else like it, so I'm keeping it. The next one up is the sort of Sonia G crease one, but it's bigger and it really does apply differently, so I'll be keeping all three. Plus, I have the Fox pencil brush on the way to me, so I kind of want to compare all four of them and see how they work. Okay, next up is the sort of vaguely pencil brush / blending brush territory. So these have sort of like this bullet shape with a point to them. So we're going to start with the Hakuhodo WS3. So the Hakuhodo WS3 has this sort of like very sharp point to it. And it's really unique in that you can like apply and blend as well as put a point down. The thing is, I am going to be destashing this because I can replicate these effects with two different brushes. I really don't need to keep one for them. This one is already spoken for. Same thing for the Ray Morris Chishaku number 8 point blender or point shader. This one is the original one made of squirrel. And you can like apply very finely with the tip or press a little bit harder for blending. However, I have brushes that can do both, and I don't really need that. I really love that can do both, and I don't need to keep another one to do it. So these two are sort of the smaller sizes, and they are unique in that they come to that very, very tapered point. These are sort of the more crease brushes now. So the points on these are bigger and rounder. So this one is the Hakuhodo B533. I had like kind of a crisis this weekend when I didn't have my calipers. I couldn't figure out if this was the 5526 or the 533. Finally got my calipers back with me, and then I measured it. This is the 533. This is made of horse, and again, impressively soft for horse. It's not quite, the brown horse isn't quite as soft as their white horse, which is really, really soft and silky. And good blender if you want a very firm blender. This kind of almost acts as an eraser. Same thing for these two. This is by Shosho Long. This is a J13. It's made of horse. And I like this one better because it's more flexible at the tip. And it just works really well. Like, I wish I had another brush like this. I'm pretty sure I could find one in the Hakuhodo G line. So be taking a look the next time I go to the showroom. Like, this one's a really nice brush. I just use this one a lot, though I don't think I've ever used it on camera. But there's a lot of brushes I've never used on camera. This is the Sonia G Crease 1. This is more like the Hakuhodo in stiffness, or rather firmness. So as you can see, quite firm until you get about halfway up. Then the tip here tapers a lot more and it becomes more flexible, and you get more options out of it in terms of surface area. Very little, medium, or a lot of surface area. As you can see, this one you're kind of starting with medium and you go to large. Because I am okay with being more finicky with my eyeshadow brushes, I'm going to be keeping the Crease 1 and then destashing the Hakuhodo B533 because I have other brushes that I use as erasers. So this one will go. And then the next batch of round brushes are what are getting into what I call my true blenders. So So just a little bit of a size comparison. We go from our true crease blenders. So we're going from like the crease one, this little small thing that's almost like an overblown pencil, to this bigger one, which is more tapered and slightly fluffier, to actually fluffy and more flexible and less like a pencil brush. So first one up is the S142. This S142 is in the black handled version, and it's one of my oldest brushes, and I really love it. So you don't get a ton of precision if you're blending really hard, but if you're just doing like a soft crease, this one is beautiful. I can't recommend this brush enough. The regular Goat J or B142 fluffs up a lot more, and you don't get that nice, lovely tapered point, which is the reason why I got the 142 in the S, the squirrel, because that point is much, much more defined in the squirrel version versus the Goat version. And then that's kind of the only brush I have at that type, actually. And then this one is kind of the same idea, pointed, but much, much stronger because you have a lot more hair packed in here. And then it's just much stronger. This one acts almost like this brush does. The difference is it's bigger. So I just take a little bit of eyeshadow with it, and I go into the crease, and I just wipe it back and forth, and it just diffuses itself with 3 strokes back and forth. It's really fast, really efficient. This one is more, I have to be a bit more delicate about it. This one is a one and done crease. This one is a, I want to layer and get like a beautiful watercolor effect crease. And then I have these really big crease brushes that I also use as highlight brushes. This is the Surratt Smoky Eye Grande, or large. And this one, as you can imagine, is not super versatile, but it works really great as like a highlight brush for dusting. But I also do actually use this for a smoky eye. So I'll kind of use just this part, dip into the eyeshadow, and then like sort of draw it across my eye. And then as I draw across, it blends it out. So I can use black eyeshadow pretty liberally with this, and I don't end up with raccoon eyes, which is really, really nice. Like, this shape is definitely not for everybody. It's definitely more of a special use brush, but it's really nice. Similarly with this one, this was what I was kind of using for that. So I would kind of load up just this part of the tip and draw it across, and then blend the crease out a little bit more to get a nice smoky eye effect. This is the Pro Drawing Blending 42. Sadly discontinued, but a really nice synthetic brush. This one was one of my first purchases at an IMATS, where I was going back and forth like, do I need this? Do I need this? And then the sales associate was just very coyly holding these and just handed them to me and be like, you need these. So these have a special place in my heart. Or this one does, because it was my first IMATS purchase. And then what really bugs me is there are actually several eye brushes that I can't find. One of them is the smaller version of this. I have no idea where it went. Last time I saw it was last fall, and it's really bugging me because I don't know where it went. Similarly, there's another brush that really bugs me because I have no idea where it is right now. So that's the state of my collection. This is the Isam S33 Squirrel Blender. The other one, only similar, sort of similar to it, is the 142. I like the 142 much better, so the S33 is going to go. And then we have the Goat blender. So this is the Hakuhodo, not Hakuhodo. This is the Tom Ford number 13 blender brush. I actually do like this one a lot. It looks very similar to the Sonia G Crease 2, except the Sonia G Crease 2, once you start using them, you realize, oh, the Sonia G Crease 2 splays out a lot more and is less precise of a tip. So this one's like a round blender with a slight taper to it, and this one's like a tapered brush that's more rounded, but that slight distinction is enough to give them different application effects. So I will be keeping both. The Hakuhodo 5522 is a brilliant highlight brush and a contour brush for me. I don't use it so much for crease because it's too big. For my crease size, I prefer the Sonia G. But You see that spread? It makes a great highlight brush for the nose and the cheeks. And then we have the Chikuhodo Z11. This is a very one and done fast smoky eye brush, or a one wash blend. So you can see how much it spreads out, but it is surprisingly resilient for squirrel, and it's not as bad of a blender as I thought it would be. I've said this before, I got this brush totally expecting not to like it and thinking it was going to be flimsy and not useful. It's actually really quite useful. So if you have like a big lid area, this will be great for you. And if you have eye primer and you set it with powder, this is a great one. The reason why I don't use, say, the 5522 for applying powder over a primer or foundation to eyes to set it is because the Z11 just applies it so much more sheerly. This would pick up too much powder to apply down as a base, and this one just gives a nice layer, so then you can apply eyeshadow on top smoothly. Moving on, we have these sort of more flattened, domed eyeshadow brushes. All of these are in synthetic. I'm not sure why I don't have a natural brush one. I guess I just gravitate toward these shapes in synthetic. The Hakuhodo 5533 is very similar to these in shape and size, and I destashed that one because it was just too much for me to use for my eyes. These eye brushes get used for my under eyes, actually, so I don't really use these for my eyes. Well, this one does because it's smaller, more restrained, and more firm and controllable. This is the Hourglass number 4 Crease blender. This one is also one of my original brushes, and I've used this a lot over the years, and I really do enjoy it a lot. This is the Urban Decay Domed Concealer Brush. This is the F112, so I'm actually using this in its right capacity when I use it for my under eyes. But I do use this for my eyes once in a while if I'm using a cream shadow and I need a strong blender for it. The thing is, these are sort of redundant for me, and this one gives me more control, so I will be destashing the Urban Decay. And so these two Sigma brushes look very similar in size and shape. However, when I do use them on my eyes, this one is noticeably softer than this one, or it feels silkier, the hair does. Like, this one just feels more pleasant. That one is the E40 Tapered Blending, and this one is the Pract Large Blend. This one, let me get these straight, has a stronger spring back and works better for like sort of patting on under eye concealer. And it's just, this one just works better for stronger purposes. This one works better for, or this one just feels better. So if it was a comparison between synthetic goat and synthetic squirrel, synthetic goat. And I will be keeping both of these to play around more with. Next up, we have the sort of elongated bullet brushes. Compare these to the sort of more true bullet brush. So if these elongated bullet brushes, what I like to do with them is just dip it in shadow, roll it around, and then just smear it all over my eye to get a nice wash of color. And because of that round shape, the edges will be different from the main concentration of color, so then I get this beautiful gradient if I use a dimensional complex shadow without trying to do anything. This one is going nowhere. This is a Koyudo Nadeshiko small eye brush, the round eye brush. It's on the looser side for an eye brush. As you can see, there's sort of that gap between the ferrule and the hair. If I really pull it over, maybe you can't see if the camera doesn't focus. But regardless, this is one of my favorite brushes. Some people might not like it because it's relatively not dense for a round eye brush, but it's super unique in that regard, and the application effect is beautiful, so I love it. Moving on to the more dense eye brushes, this is the large version of the Mizume Sakura brushes. Quite a size difference. This is the medium, this is the large. This one, I think I do have a video on this. I use the tip for a dark color, and then I use the sides for a more medium tone shade. So then it's kind of like this target of sort of medium tone and then a dark tone. And I stick this in my crease, and I just move it back and forth, and it applies and blends. And I have a defined crease right away. Love this brush for it. Similarly, that's what I do with the Hakuhodo. What are you? I think this is a 5524. Yep. Nope. This is the 5524. This is also in my top 10 videos. And if you're wondering, if you love this brush so much, why don't you know the name of it? I have a pretty terrible memory, so that's why I'm making a spreadsheet in the first place, so I can look up easily what the names of my brushes are, rather than go combing through the website and measuring the hair to be able to tell what size and what brush model it is. So these two kind of get used for the same thing. Of course, the Kazan Squirrel and the Hakuhodo one is going to be much softer and much more pleasant feeling. It's just a beautiful brush. This one also works really well as a nose, brow bone, and cheek highlight brush because of that size you get. For a cheek highlight brush, definitely use the side for it so you don't get like a very thin strip of color, but otherwise, great one and done brushes these are. This is one that's newer to my collection, the Koyudo Kolinsky eye brush in size large. I've definitely done multiple videos recently using this eye brush. It's not going anywhere. I love it, and I hope it's here to stay. It kind of keeps coming back in waves, but I probably wouldn't worry too much about it selling out quickly because it is on the more expensive side, but it's a beautiful brush. And a question I was asked the other day that I thought was a really good question I forgot to address in my video that I made devoted to this brush is, what's the quality of the Kolinsky hair? The Kolinsky hair in this one is easily better than the normal BP series. So say my BP 036, the Kolinsky hair is better, softer, and if I like jam it into my eye, once in a while I can feel a pokey one with the 036. With the Koyudo large eye brush, I can't feel it, or I can't feel any individual hair at all, which is really nice. And then rounding out the large eye brushes is this Sowa one from the 2019 set. This one is a great under eye concealer brush, but I do use this one for a wash of strong color as well. And because of that firmness, I do use this one as an eraser. So say I applied too much color, I take this one clean and then I just kind of wipe it away and diffuse the color right back down to where I want it. Definitely a unique brush in my series, or in my collection, and I will be keeping this one. And this one is kind of like an elongated bullet brush. So these are the bullet brushes. And as you can see, what I call a true bullet brush is much shorter and rounder. So this one is a BH Cosmetics Weasel round hair brush. It doesn't feel great on the eyes, I will admit. Like if you jab it in, if I jab it in, I can definitely feel some pokey hairs. I have been using this one as a blemish concealer. So I'll put a little pinpoint of foundation concealer on, and I'll use this one. I'll just like tap it like I would with my finger to blend it in, and it blends in. I originally was going to destash this one, but nostalgia made me keep it. So I'm going to be continuing to use this as a concealer brush. Similarly, that's what I use the Hourglass number 9 for. So even though I don't have to keep this one, I am going to keep it. Don't have to keep this one, I am going to keep it. This one is a great concealer brush as well as a good eye brush. So if I want to like really smear around some pencil liner, this is the one for it because it's made of synthetic. So it's good for cream and pencil. And it's also relatively firm without being pokey or harsh on the eyes. The hair is quite soft. This is a brush from the Polydorf Eyebrow Stencil Kit. It's made of horsehair. It feels awful. It's going. Like, I've never used this as an eye brush. I got it because I wanted to compare it to these other brushes. It's awful. Like, it even pokes my face. But that's definitely my fault because this is meant to be an eyebrow brush and not an eye brush. It even says brow stencil on it. This is another brush that's sort of similar to the Hourglass one. I do prefer the Hourglass one more because it's smaller and more precise. I don't really need a crease definer this big. If I wanted to go big, I would go for one with a point. So even though this has served me well, this is dyed goat hair. This one's going. And then I have the Urban Decay The Finger. This is F110. This also gets used as a concealer brush rather than an eye brush. I do use it to sort of highlight the inner corner of my eye between my eye and my nose. So mostly a face brush, sometimes an eye brush, but mostly a face brush. Actually, I'm not sure why I included this here. Okay, I wasn't thinking very hard. But I will be keeping this one because I do use it a lot, and also the name of it's kind of funny. Sue me, I'm immature. Okay, moving on to the more random brushes. Actually, no, let's do the angled brushes first. So we have, okay, actually, I'm gonna take these off. So we have several types of angled shapes. So we have the angled shapes where it's like flat cut right across the top, or rather flat molded right across the top. And then we have the ones that are more rounded like this. So these are both eye brushes. This is the I6451, and I use this mostly, again, as a concealer brush, sometimes as an eye brush if I really need to take something down and erase color. But if I'm erasing, I prefer to use a more pointed brush for it because that gives me a little bit more precision. I can use the edge of it to erase and then the big side to blend, but this one mostly gets used as the under eye concealer brush for me, or if I'm using a Maybelline color tattoo, I use this one to grab it and then disperse it all around because it is synthetic and it does work better than the other synthetic brushes I have for distributing a cream shadow base, because these are not quite firm and plush enough for it. And then this is the Shakuda Mizume large eye brush. This is made of, I believe, pony and synthetic. Let me check. Yes, this is the number 303 blending eye brush made of pony and synthetic hair. So this one has a unique triangular ferrule, just like the Sephora Pro drawing. And I don't know what else to say besides it's quite unique. And it works really well as an eye blending brush. You have to have a larger eyelid space for it though. So I wouldn't recommend this for everybody, but it is nice to have in my collection. And I have been using this to pat on powder underneath my eyes to set, as well as using it as a face highlight brush, just kind of going like this on my cheek or like this down my nose with it. And then we have the other eye brushes. So these are Canadian Squirrel and Pine Squirrel. The bottom two are Canadian Squirrel. The top one is Pine Squirrel. This one is a Makeup Cat Chinese brush brand. I got this quite a few years ago. This was before I was willing to spring for the Hakuhodo ones because I wanted to test out the shape to see if I would like it before I invested in the Hakuhodo ones. And this one is technically a nose contour brush, but it's good as an eye brush as well. It's just a little bit bigger in surface area, kind of like the Shakuta one. And I will be destashing this one because I love these two so much. I really don't need the nose one. Okay, let's see. So this one is the 515. Yes, the 515 is the smaller one, and the 513 is the bigger one. The 515 is no longer available because Hakuhodo discontinued their Canadian Squirrel eye brushes. A real shame. I do really love using this one to apply, blend, and this is definitely a one eyeshadow, one eye brush kind of brush. And you can use this for these doe foot shapes in general. You can use this flat part to place down, blend, and then the tip to apply another color. I do have a video on my channel on how to use these doe foot type brushes because they do tend to baffle a lot of people. So that's this smaller one. This bigger one, use the same way. So pick up color, apply it, blend, use the tip to apply a stronger crease color or darker color near your lash line, wipe it off, pick up a lighter color, put it in the center. I love this one. But if I was to recommend one, I would recommend the smaller one. So if you run across the 515, pick it up. The 513, the G513, is still available. The last time I went to their showroom, I saw it, and I was really, really tempted to get a backup. This one works great as a highlight brush, and it's just beautiful on the face as one because you get this sort of soft, strong, diffused color. It does apply highlight color a little bit more strongly because of that flat surface. Compared to this as a highlight brush, this is the Tansedo WS12. This one is quite a bit looser, fluffier, and it just has sort of this splay to it at the end that you don't get with the Canadian Squirrel and the Hakuhodo 513. So this one works as a highlight brush and a contour brush. This is made of Chikuhodo, and this is supposed to be an eye brush. I'm not sure how you would use it as an eye brush besides as a under eye setting brush because of that splay. And yeah, I'm kind of at a loss for how you would use this one as a eye brush. So this one gets relegated to face brush for me. And then in comparison with my sort of other large eye brushes, this is the Koyudo BES01. This is made of pine squirrel. This one gets used for highlight, contour, contouring the socket through the nose, across the eye, and then also in the hollows of my cheeks. Same thing with the T6. So these brushes get used mostly for face, for highlight and contour, but I do use these two for eyes. I use these for a one-wash color across the eyes because you just roll it around in shadow, you wipe it back and forth twice, and you're done. They're super great. I love the T6. I will never, probably ever not recommend the T6. Even if you don't use it as an eye brush, you will probably use it as a face brush. And then this one is kind of like these brushes here, where it's just a blown up version of them. And then the pine squirrel does give you a little bit more airiness and more delicate application than these would. So that's all my round eye brushes. One of them that I was not able to show you was my Hakuhodo G5528. It's a bullet brush, just like these brushes. It was in my Hakuhodo top 10. I'm not sure where it went. The last time I saw it was around Christmas when I went on my Christmas trip, so I'm really hoping I did not leave it somewhere. And yeah, if I can't find it in the next couple weeks before I go to the Hakuhodo showroom again to film the rest of their series and do an overview on them, I'm probably going to pick up another one because it's really bugging me that I don't have that brush. Actually, it's probably most similar to the Hourglass number 9, except in squirrel. And it's just a great brush to have for everything that I would use this for except concealer. So take a look at the comments and then see if there's anything I need to address, then hop off. Okay. The Tom Ford 13 is a real gem. Shame it was discontinued. Yeah, so about that Tom Ford, for those of you who don't know, the original Tom Ford was in goat. The current one is in synthetic. I would say the synthetic brushes are not worth their full price. And yeah, so if you want to get a pencil brush like it, look into the Koyudo medium-sized eye brush. So I'll just leave this here so you can kind of look at the sizes of them again. Hi. So yeah, so like the replay will probably suit you really well because you came late. And then a lot of why I justify keeping or selling a brush does have emotion attached to it. So there are brushes I probably don't need to keep, but I'm keeping them anyways. So yeah. So when I was going through my round eye brushes, this one got lumped in the frown even though it's triangular because it's pretty much functionally round. But I couldn't find the smaller size of this, which really, really bugs me. And I also couldn't find the G5528. If you want to see the 5528, it's my Hakuhodo top 10 videos. And I'm really, really upset I can't find that one because it's just a nice bullet squirrel brush, and I don't have anything else like it. So, yeah. What's my favorite crease brush? There are several ways to answer that question. My favorite crease brush to use, my favorite crease brush to recommend to other people, and my most used crease brush. My most used crease brush is not my favorite crease brush. So my favorite one is the 5524 because it's unique, and I have a thing for unique stuff. So this one is in my top 10 Hakuhodo videos. And then it's just really easy to use, even though you think with the large size, it wouldn't be that great to use. But because it's so weird, I don't like recommending it to people. I would recommend the 142 instead. So the 142, I would recommend it in squirrel because it has that more defined point. With goat, it fluffs up more, so you lose that point and you lose that precision. And so this is my favorite one to recommend to people. My most used one is surprisingly the Sowa. So I'm not sure why I reach for this one so much, but it's probably a combination of the size and the strength of it. It's really easy to use, but you probably don't get too much use of it if you don't have much lid space or if you don't really use that sort of transition crease color. So that's my most used one. It kind of ties with the Kolinsky one for my most used recently. Like I find myself always reaching for this one, but because it's so expensive, I don't like to recommend that one either. Like if anyone asks, I will say, yeah, you should definitely get it, but I don't really like saying you should get it because of the sheer price of it. Other than that, yeah, I think it seems like most of my crease brushes are on the larger size. The third one I was thinking of was the Z11, the blend brush by Chikuhodo. This is one of the later releases to the Z series. What else? I do like the Chikuhodo one as well. So you're kind of seeing a trend where I tend to prefer the larger crease brushes. Like the smaller crease brushes like this one, I like, but I don't use as much because they are more of a luxury tool for me. And by luxury, I mean I have the luxury of time to really place my color carefully and be precise with it. Normally when I do my eyeshadow, it's fast and I look for efficiency, so that's why I tend to gravitate toward the larger crease brushes. Definitely a very good one to have, but again, this is like a smaller brush, a more luxury, time luxury brush, so I don't use this one as often as I use these four. Okay, I think we're getting off topic land here, so hang in there if you want to, but otherwise, this video is pretty much done. For face contouring, in particular cream contour, do you prefer the 5522 by Hakuhodo or the Chikuhodo T6? Definitely the Chikuhodo T6. So let's pull those out. 5522 and Chikuhodo Z6. So let's move these off. So this one is very firm for a goat brush, and this one is less firm because you have less hair buttressing it, and then the tip's just more flexible. So this one works really well for powder contour as well as for a cream contour because it's just much stronger of a brush. Like I have to press quite hard to be able to get this display out versus this. So for cream contour, definitely this one. I haven't tried the 5521B with cream contour yet. I could try it later this week, but I would say this one can handle it for sure. The 5521, I'm less confident about that because it is longer and it's shaped more like the 5522, so it will be more flexible at the tip. And I'm not quite sure the 5521B, which is a face highlight brush, could handle cream contour. All right, so thank you for watching, and I will maybe be back later this week, probably Friday, with my paddle eye brushes and my lip and liner brushes, and that will wrap up my brush collection video. And it seems like out of all my brushes, the ones where I find that I'm missing some brushes are the eye brushes, which is really disturbing. So I think I've complained about that enough. Thank you for watching. I will see you guys next time. Bye.